right. Hi, beautiful people. My name is Jacy Moonspirit, and I am here from Four of Like Kind to give you your Saturday session. So today we are going to be pulling cards, but I'm going to talk to you a little bit first because I feel like it's important for us to have an open line of communication, guys. So there are a few different things that I want to teach you today about the way I pull cards. And the reason I'm emphasizing the way I do this is because everybody's approach seems to be very different. I don't necessarily follow what I would consider to be a traditional route of doing this, but I do think that the way that I do this works well for me and it might work well for you. So if you're new to reading cards, or if you've maybe seen a Tarot Talk Thursday and you're a little bit nervous about the idea of jumping into doing something like reading tarot cards, or if you've seen memes on Facebook about how just awful it can be to have your tarot cards call you out on the carpet for things that you're just kind of trying to ignore. I want to reassure you that I am not here to scare you. I am not here to tell you to do this. I'm not here to tell you not to do this. But I am here to invite you to take in the information that I give you and that my friends here at Four of Like Kind are also giving you out in our Witchy Week posts. And I hope that you will enjoy this video or this podcast if you're listening to this later when it's boosted on Spotify and Google Podcasts and everywhere else lovely that has chosen to sponsor us. So with that being said, let's dive right in. Today we are going to be looking at a Face Your Fears tarot spread. So I thought this would be a good jumping off point for people who are just stepping into this journey. I wanted to talk to you about the process too. So first things first, I like to use just a plain kitchen torch and a smudge bowl to light some white sage. This is really good just to set the ambiance for me as a card reader and an energy healer. I'm also Native American, so it's very important for me to make sure that I'm being spiritually mindful and respectful of the earth as well. So I will literally burn this until it is ash. That is just the way that I like to operate. You can do what you'd like to do. I just hope you do it in a way that's good for the mother. And now I'm going to open my card bag. Now you may notice this doesn't look like some of the card bags that we have made here at Four of Like Kind and through Spirit Walks for Our Creations. This is an old clutch purse that I think I bought at a Charming Charlie about 5 or 6 years ago for prom. And the reason I use this for a card bag is because it's just convenient. It's the right size for my deck. It can also hold more than one deck, or if I'm going into a festival situation, it can also hold my ID, my keys, an extra medicine bag if I need one, a couple of crystals to set a table with. You kind of get the picture. It's got a little chain on it, which we could make you one as well if you wanted to have one that was made for you. Traditionally, it is a good idea to have a bag for your tarot or oracle cards because it is said that cards pick up energy, just like crystals, just like we as people do. And I think it is a beautiful idea to do so because just quite simply, it's nice to have that as a little piece of ceremony for yourself. Pulling the cards out of the bag for the first time to me just feels like unwrapping that book at Christmas, or taking the lid off of that box and actually being able to experience the magic for the first time, and it happens over and over and over again. So it's a nice little dopamine fix for me. I really love it. You can use different materials to make your bag if you choose to make your own. You can use leather because it's very grounding. You can use velvet. You can use silk. I personally love to use silk, velvet, and leather if I can get my hands on it. And I have bags that I think are now made out of all of those things. I don't know whether or not one works better than any of the others, but I'm Native American, so I'm going to gravitate towards the leather whenever it's available. Just throwing that out there. We are reading today from the Everyday Witch Tarot. This is a very beautiful deck that I recommend to people who are just stepping into the tarot for the first time because it isn't the traditional Rider-Waite tarot. It's a beautiful deck. I don't have anything bad to say about the Rider-Waite or the Rider-Waite Smith decks. I just think that personally for me, it was really important to find my own voice as a reader instead of just repeating jargon and cliched phrases that I was seeing over and over and over again when I was first stepping into card reading by reading books. I think that it's a very good idea to get an idea of the general basis for the deck that has inspired so many other decks. I just don't personally use a Rider-Waite deck. I use a tarot deck, which is based around some of the same principles. But the reason that I like the Everyday Witch Tarot is actually because it's just a very gentle round of images. All of the characters that are in the deck have an animal companion. The colors are very bright. The flow of the art is just, it's very gentle, it's wavy. I feel like I can dive right into these card readings, and no matter what comes up in the reading, I'm still comforted because just like the characters in the deck, you're never really completely alone. So I really love that sentiment, and I like to suggest that for people who are just starting out. So if you're interested in finding a first practice deck, this one is a really good idea. It's relatively cheap. You can buy it online and have it delivered to you if you don't want to go out and get one. But anyway, I digress. Today I have printed off a card reading spread from Pinterest, which is a pretty good resource if you're looking for spreads. We also have some that are available now on Four of Like Kind's website at fouroflikekind.com if you're interested in going online and using one that we custom made and that we've used before in the shows. You're more than welcome to do so. I'm using this spread because I personally have been having some nightmares recently, and I have tracked those back to fears and anxieties that I personally have. And given that we worked on forgiveness yesterday in our coffee clutch, which is our weekly Reiki sesh, where we process things out and we get inspiration from you guys or from a deck or from just our own journeys, I decided that we could face our fears today. Because it's Saturday, it's a day that we kind of usually have off in the work week most of the time. And it's a day that a lot of people use to process things anyway. I've met a lot of people that work, the 9-to-5, Monday to Friday job. Saturday is the day that they like to process things in the house so that they can have Sunday off to be religious or spend time with their family or do an event. And so Saturday during the day is the best time, I think, to do some processing because you can really start to see the returns by the time you go to bed for the night, and you can focus entirely on your own space, on your own thoughts, on your own flow patterns. And so while we're facing our fears, we can see where they manifest for us in those environments. So our first question is about conscious fears. What are our conscious fears? Our second one is, what are our subconscious fears? Because we have the ones that we know we're afraid of while we're awake, things like maybe spiders or snakes, booming gas prices, things like that. And then we have the subconscious fears, which sometimes are things that we hide from ourselves, like fear of abandonment, daddy issues, fears of abuse, just things that sometimes don't even make sense too, like fear of drowning, fear of being on open water, things like that are also subconscious fears. And these usually have a little bit more of a spiritual nature, or they affect us more on the spiritual level, which then pushes forth into our conscious minds and makes us create patterns that create blockages. So we also have an examination here of the ego. How do our conscious fears affect our ego? How do our subconscious fears feed our egos? So moving on from that, we also have what our higher self has to say about overcoming the conscious fear, and what it has to say about the subconscious fear is after. Our last question is, what action do I need to take today to overcome my fears and start moving in the direction of my dreams? I love this question because I just really feel that fear does bottleneck a flow. It does choke out your ability to catch your dreams and make them into a reality because it limits you. It tells you this is the point that you've never passed before and you don't know what's on the other side. And for a lot of us who are dreamers that want to see our dreams become reality, we have to face that and we have to overcome that a lot, sometimes even on a daily basis, just to grow enough to push through that and achieve what we set out to do, because we have to accept that we are not afraid of having that anymore. So I'm going to relight my smudge here because it's playing hard to get. And then I'm going to go ahead and start reading this card reading. If you guys would like to have a free one card reading today, I'll open up the floor to that, and you can do that as you wish. I'm going to try to get my discussion board up here so that I can see a little more of what we're working with. Okay. I don't actually know how to set up these things. Private chat. Cool. Well, I figured it out. Guys. This is always a learning process. It's a learning process for you guys because you're coming to me and trying to learn how to read cards or learning how you can take better care of yourself, and that's awesome. And I'm so grateful to you for that. It's also a learning on my side because I am not the producer of this show. We have a wonderful producer, Spirit Soaring, who takes really good care of us. It's just I'm finally starting to play with this myself now. So it's a little bit of an exciting adventure here. So I'm going to shuffle the deck. This is another part of the ceremony of reading cards. I think it's very important to shuffle the deck before you start and after you start, because shuffling it moves energy through the deck. So it's already generating energy to get you an accurate reading. I think it's important to shuffle after a reading because it removes the energy as well. So it's just kind of like refreshing things. It's like if you've ever been panning for gemstones or gold. I'm from North Carolina, so this happens all the time. You get your pan set with everything in it and you have to kind of shake it up. You have to shuffle things around a little bit. It's the same principle when you're working with your cards. So our first question, my conscious sphere. And then we have our subconscious sphere. How my conscious sphere feeds my ego. And then how my subconscious sphere serves my ego. Number 5, what my higher self has to say about overcoming my conscious sphere. What my higher self has to say about overcoming my subconscious sphere. And our final and 7th card, 7 is a cool number for magic, just pointing that out. What action I need to take today to overcome my fears and start moving in the direction of my dreams. Okay, so our conscious sphere is the Page of Pentacles. When you look at the Page of Pentacles, it's important to note that the page is a youth. Most of the time, this means they're a little bit inexperienced or they're a little green when it comes to the realm they're trying to explore. When you come to Pentacles, you have to look at this suit as Earth. So these are resources that can be shared. They are potentially tied to nature. They can also be just material things like money. It can be people that you share a lot of money with. And we see Pentacles come up a lot in career readings. So our conscious sphere, when we see the Page of Pentacles, I interpret this as being the novitiate or being the first person or the new person at the job that steps in and may not necessarily know the process, or changing fields in careers as well, because I have actually done this and it is kind of scary because you go into the new field with all of these expectations that you've seen in movies or TV shows, or maybe you know somebody that's been in this field before. And so their testimonial is what you have. This is the portrayal that you have, the ideal that is built around it. And it could line up or it could not, and you don't know what to expect. You're at the beginning of the journey and you don't know what to expect. I also think that when we are given life, when we have that sit down conversation with the creatrix and we write our script and we say, these are the things that I want to go through. These are the things I want to experience. These are what I want to receive on the other side of these tests. And she says, are you sure? We make this beautiful map. We make this wonderful script. And it's scary sometimes for people to have this conversation because a lot of people want to believe in destiny, and that's fine. I just think we made our own. I think that the destiny is the script. I think we eventually go back into that script. And whenever we have to flip the script or whenever we make a choice that's outside of that, we deviate a little bit. And that's the beauty of having free will in a preordained structure, if you want to go that route. Very philosophical and theological all at the same time. But I mean, we're reading tarot cards for self-care. So I think sometimes we're afraid that we have made it too hard on ourselves, or that the creatrix or the creator spirit is out to get us. And I personally don't think this is true, but I think this is a bigger question that if you need personalized assistance processing, I am open to receiving those messages for you. I'm open to helping you process these things because it's different for everybody. I think that the Page of Pentacles is kind of like somebody that runs around and they've got that huge, heavy camping pack of like all of the things they think they're going to need. And about halfway through, they're scared they might have to set something down because it's too heavy. So moving on, we see our subconscious sphere, and this is the Fool. So we've all heard the phrase, take a leap of faith. And I think when it comes to the Fool, classically, this is a person who is teetering right on the edge of what is known and what is unknown. And the known is represented by being on the cliff. We are on solid ground, theoretically, and everything is kind of assured. Whereas we're always facing the sea, which could be considered a metaphor for our emotions, our psychic abilities, our spiritual nature, or just the cosmic sea, the unknown. And we have to embrace the unknown at times in our lives so that we don't stagnate by just doing the same thing over and over and over again. And it's very scary for a lot of people to break that cycle. So I think that the subconscious sphere is what happens if I take the leap and I break my neck? Or what happens if I make this choice and it doesn't pan out the way I think it will? Failure is just a step in life's journey on the road to success. If you want to manifest a dream and you try something out and it doesn't work, change the plan. You don't have to change the goal. You can change aspects of the plan and try a new method to get from point A to point B. And instead of it looking like a straight line, it might look a little bit like a zigzag from time to time with your little peaks and valleys as you go through your failures and your successes. And that's just basically what life is. It's just a bunch of mountains and valleys that we go through. We're always taking leaps, even if we don't know them, even if we don't understand them. So it's okay for us to accept that this is something that's kind of genetically hardwired into us because we all have that funny little part of our brain at the back of our necks that is the amygdala. It's our fight, flight, or freeze receptor. It tells us, hey, this is scary, react. It's the same basic principle, just with a spiritual side. So moving on to number 3, how my conscious sphere serves my ego. So we see the sun. The conscious sphere is, again, the Page of Pentacles. So this is being the novitiate, being new, not really knowing the territory. And I think that this serves a fear because it blocks us from getting to where we want to be, but it keeps us in the point where we sort of expect that everything is either going to work out and everybody's going to help us or it won't. We're either going to get burned or we won't. I think that as well, the sun has to do with innocence. And I don't think that innocence is a bad thing. I just think that if we're looking at things from a fear perspective, not knowing is very scary sometimes. This is a card that usually is shown with a baby on horseback. And as a parent of a small child, or small children, that actually scares the crap out of me because I never see an adult nearby to catch the baby. And you can kind of look at yourself in the Page of Pentacles mindset as being the baby there without anybody to catch you. So basically, I think that it scares us, and at the same time, it's a little bit of a thrill because the sun is also about success, completion, and seeing the bright side. So in some ways, our Page of Pentacles fear can be flipped around so that we can actually walk ourselves back out of it consciously. And then number 4, the Fool. And we see the Two of Wands is our support. So this is how our subconscious fear is served by the ego. So the Fool is being served by the ego through the Two of Wands. And I think this just keeps us hung in the balance because we're not starting the cycle with the Ace of Wands. We're not planning for the long term yet in the Three of Wands. So it just keeps us deliberate. It keeps us stuck in consideration mode. So this is the thinking part instead of the doing part of the dream. You can plan everything out and have all of your details lined up. All of your ducks can be neatly tidied up in a row. I don't know how you did it, but you did. And all of a sudden you try to act on it and something goes wrong and you're like, gotta go back to square one. You may not have to go back to square one. Like I said, you can change the plan and not have to change the goal. You can change the plan and still achieve your dream. You can still achieve the desired outcome. You do not have to stay on the fence post. You do not have to stay stuck in the dark. You do not have to only operate in the known. You can operate outside of what you've been taught. You can operate definitely outside of the programming and outside of this habit of just internalizing everything, having to think absolutely every single detail through. You can act past the neurosis. So, on to number 5, what my higher self has to say about overcoming my conscious fear. So, don't know if you can actually see this in detail, but this is kind of the way that I'm reading it. So over here we have conscious, over here we have subconscious. So we're just going to be bouncing back and forth between our conscious and subconscious, just like when we're going to sleep. I'll show it to you guys too, just so that you can kind of see the way that we're doing this. It's a funny little pattern when you really look at it. So when it comes down to it, it's actually 2 Sawillow runes, which is the Viking rune for success and wholeness. So throwing that out to the universe now. Back to the reading. So we have, for number 5, the 6 of Wands, and this is how our higher self feels about us overcoming this fear. So when you're new, when you're a student, and you're going to college for the first time, maybe you're going to college away from home. Yeah, I flipped it. I did it for a good reason. So the Page of Pentacles could be like a student that's going to college away from home for the first time. They've always been under mom and dad's thumb, and they've never really had to make a whole lot of decisions. They could be considered sheltered. They've got everything that they need for the school year with them already. They don't know exactly what they're going to need. They don't know what's going to happen to them. And their ego is just kind of telling you, you're new. It's fine. Keep panicking. Keep panicking. Somebody will see you floundering. You're going to be fine. And the 6 of Wands says, hold up. You might be that student that becomes an RA in a couple of years. You might actually learn something here. This is an experience that you might be able to share with somebody else. You might not actually be alone. And also, you can do something to help somebody else out in this situation. So take, for example, having a beautiful business plan and taking it to an investor and kind of being afraid because you don't have a business background, but you really want to make this business successful. You are taking your experiences, your preparations, everything that you know to the community and saying, I want to give back in this way. That is what your higher self has to say about being afraid to act on what you already have, being afraid to take that first step. So do it anyway. You're going to learn something and you can share what you learn with other people. That's what your higher self is trying to tell you about your conscious fear. Back to our subconscious fear. Remember, we are afraid to take the leap because it's keeping us in this comfortable little old shoe here where we're just thinking about everything and we're just kind of spinning around, not really doing a whole lot with it. We're just collecting information. We're just processing things. We're just all up here and not out here. So what does our higher self have to say? Strength. I love this. This message is awesome because when you take the leap, when you step into uncharted territory, you become so much more than you were before. So a testimonial or an anecdote for this is like when I moved to Colorado from North Carolina, everybody thought I was crazy because Colorado's colder than North Carolina. It's really not. It's not. We get more snow, but it doesn't feel at all as cold as it is in a place where minimum humidity is going to be like 76 most days. So 91 degrees to me here in Colorado during the summer when it's dry is not the same as 91 degrees at 87% humidity back in North Carolina. So the weather is different. The lifestyle was different as well. They didn't understand how I could be in a place that didn't serve sweet tea in restaurants. It's quite simple. I learned how to make my own. And they also just didn't understand why I couldn't do what I do here, what I'm doing for you guys right now, there. And the reason I couldn't there is because I wasn't in an environment with people yet who fully supported me. And by taking the leap that I did, I found my tribe, I found my purpose, and I found a lot more confidence in my ability to not only start over in a brand new place from scratch, meet people that would help me to meet my goals, find friends that actually supported me for who I am, and I just feel more welcomed where I am now because I took that leap. Yes, it was very scary. Yes, there were sometimes situations that made me want to call home and cry to mom and maybe go back home. But I stuck it out because every time I got to that point, I was like, what happens if I go back? I'm putting myself right back at the moment before I took the leap with everything I know now. And that's what it kind of feels like when somebody's like, if you could go back in time knowing everything you know now, what would you do? I would act on everything I know now and go back and do exactly the same thing because I don't want to go back to being that person that was afraid to take the leap. I feel stronger now. I feel more confident in my own abilities. I feel more confident in my craft. And I feel more confident sharing that with other people. That's the other thing. The mindsets are different where I am now than where I'm from. So, back to your reading. When you take the leap, when you step out of always thinking and worrying and fretting over the details and just decide to do something about it, you start to balance yourself back out between your yin and your yang energy, your thinking, feeling energy, and your acting, doing energy. And you become a more enlightened, more whole person who has more control over what happens to them than the person who just plays by the same script over and over again and sticks with everything that is known and accepts everything that everybody ever tells them. So you step out of being a naive person into being somebody who is self-assured and very confident and so much more capable than you would have been if you stayed stuck on the fence post. So on to number 7, the Queen of Swords, which we actually did see come up as a fear card in our Tarot Talk Thursday reading, I believe this week and possibly also last week. What action I need to take today to overcome my fears and start moving in the direction of my dreams. So the Queen of Pentacles, or the Queen of Swords rather, I'm sorry. The Queen of Swords is about our minds. She is very quick-witted. She's very clear-headed. And she is going to make us change the way we look at our lives for the better, hopefully. She's going to analyze things to a very fine edge and say, this is what works, this is what doesn't work. And she's going to cut those ties for us and say, hey, you have to stop giving into this fear because it doesn't serve you to be small. It doesn't serve you to hide your light. It doesn't serve you to not live an active, fully participatory role in your life. You aren't living to your fullest potentials and you're wasting your energy being afraid. You're burning it all up. It's kind of like when you get afraid and your adrenaline system kicks on and then all of a sudden it stops and you crash. That's what it does to you spiritually if you don't release this, if you don't find a way to process this out and get this away from you. So the Queen of Swords is telling us that it's okay for us to step out and do our own thing if we feel called to. It's okay for us to learn more and accept that we may not know everything about the situations that we get ourselves into, but it's not important to have all of that information when you first step in. It's important to make wise decisions. It's important to make informed decisions. It's important to make intuitive decisions. However, it is not fair to you or the community for you to stay small. You have to take the leap because you come out the other side more whole, more balanced, and more at peace with yourself because you have achieved what you set out to do. You have made your dream a reality. You have self-actualized. You have gotten healthier. You've done what you needed to do. And you did that because you decided to stop looking at your life under a microscope and instead just take a fine-tooth comb and say, okay, this doesn't belong to me. This is not important right now. I can prioritize my goals. I can prioritize my thoughts. I can prioritize my self-care. So as you're facing your fears, try to keep these things in mind, because it's useful information to have if you feel like you need to be the person to show up for somebody today and say, hey, I really think you got this under control. I think you can do this. I just need you to actually do it. You've got a great idea. You've got a great plan. You've got a great relationship with yourself. You need to just do something about it. You need to make yourself show up for this today. And I am so proud of you for the people who are going to take this out into the world and make something of themselves today, or who are going to get off that fence post or out of those comfortable old shoes or just out of that comfort zone and say, you know what? I'm going to do it, guys. I'm going to do it. I'm going to make myself feel better. I'm going to be more spiritual. I'm going to be more balanced. I'm going to be a better human. And don't we all need a little bit more of that? So that is our Face Your Fears tarot spread for this Saturday session. I really hope you guys got a lot out of that. It was really cool to look at that and to take in some of that for myself, because I just sometimes, how do I put this? The thing I think people see as a fearsome thing in your tarot readings is that your cards might call you out. Your cards are infused with your energy. You read your cards. They work with you. And if you are hiding something from yourself, your cards are going to pull it to the surface anyway, because it's you working with your own energy. If something is out of alignment, if you need to examine something, tarot is an excellent way to do so, just simply because of the fact it works with you and it does not lie. Yes, you might look at things and frame your own ideas about them. You might be one of those people that doesn't like to read your own cards because you make your own predictions about what it's going to be before it gets there, and you manifest that. And there are those people that is something that you should try to avoid if you're going to read for yourself or for other people. But what I'm getting at is that being afraid of your tarot deck because you're afraid it's going to tell you something you already know means that you already know what you're working on. You already know what you have to do to get out of that mindset. And the tarot is just going to put it blatantly for you and say, look, you've got to wake up. It's time, guys. It is time for us to step out of the comfortable shoes, and it's time for us to walk our paths to our fullest potentials, because that's how we get into alignment with our higher selves. Our higher selves have already reached those potentials. If you really want to think about it, our higher selves are those potentials. If we want to achieve enlightenment, if we want to elevate our consciousness, we have to take it a step at a time, but we have to take the step. That's the important part there. You have to achieve those potentials by just taking a single step at a time every day to let go of those fears that are holding you back and to step into who you're meant to be. Does anybody want a free one card reading? I still see some comments and things on Facebook. I don't seem to have any viewers at the moment, but that's fine. You guys will tune in and watch when it's most convenient for you, or you'll listen to it, or you won't. But doesn't mean I didn't show up for work today. I'll give it just a few more minutes. I'm going to go ahead and pull another card for myself, and then I'll pull one more for the rest of our weekend. While I'm doing that, if you guys want to follow Four of Like Kind on Instagram or Facebook, we also have a YouTube account that you can look at under Four of Like Kind, and you can get updates on a lot of the content and things that we do every day of the week. We do have Self-Care Saturday coming out from Mixer Whispers this afternoon or this evening, whenever it's most convenient for them, because it's self-care, so they have to do self-care. I love these videos. I think they're excellent. We also have other weekend wellness content that'll be coming out as well. And as always, if you'd like to book yourself a session, or you think that you would receive a benefit from having a session, whether it's an intuitive consultation or if you want to have a Reiki healing, we have a couple of Reiki masters. You can schedule yourself for a massage with us. We do chakra healing. We do crystal healing. We do a lot of educational stuff as well. We have art coaching, life coaching, all of those things. So if you need resources, we can put you in touch with people who can give you those resources, or you can reach out to us and we can give you those resources. Anyway, back to reading. So I got the Seven of Pentacles for myself today. First of all, I think this is a good card for showing up and doing the work. Had a bit of a rocky start to my morning personally, but it's about putting in the work and doing the due diligence and showing up, doing what you know is right. For me, I think I'm a bit of an achievement junkie. I love to create work for myself. God, sorry, I have an itchy nose. Back to the topic. I like to create work for myself. I get these ideas and I want to chase them down, and sometimes life gets in the way. So this is a good reminder to just keep coming back to it, because it's important to me. And even though it's important to me, it might not be important to you. But the work that I do, these readings that I've been doing for a few years now, the Reiki healings that I do, all of these things are very important to me. And if I show up and I do the work, it's going to keep being important to me, because I'm going to keep getting benefits out of it. I'm going to keep seeing progress. So it's just continually sowing the seeds and tending the garden so that I can reap the rewards. So that is my Seven of Pentacles personal reading for the day. I think that is pretty awesome, pretty auspicious. Everybody's kind of got their own ways of reading these cards, but this is how I like to do it. And then a card for, I guess, tomorrow. So we see the Two of Pentacles. This is our balancing act. So the Two of Pentacles functions a little bit like this, okay? It's usually a young witch or a young page balancing themselves, kind of teetering back and forth, and always holding two pentacles. And I like this because it teaches us about balancing our thoughts and our actions so that we can get things accomplished. It also teaches us about the balance between mind and heart, because this is how things manifest in our realities. And I think it's also important to understand a balance between conscious and subconscious, because if we're truly mindful, we can kind of see how these things coalesce and come together to create how we feel about our environment, what our environment becomes for us, and how we shift that environment as well. So as you are thinking and doing, or feeling and thinking, or being mindful, examine kind of what the situation is from an eagle's perspective. What that means is just get some more perspective on it. If you are manifesting a dream into reality, think about a goal that you can achieve that puts you a step forward on that path, on that journey, and then do it. You know, you can make it a small goal. You can sit down and do the Virgo thing where you plan 10 years in advance. You can do the Capricorn thing where you sit and make your business plan, and it's beautiful and everything is thought out and all the details are perfect, right down to the color of the trim on the walls. And those are beautiful paths. I am not dissing on Virgos or Capricorns, but I'm an Aquarius. So I naturally want to change things. And so it works better for me if I choose something small and just do it. If I want to be a great wellness coach, I just do it. I make a small wellness goal for myself. I do it. I go on the internet and I tell you about it. You know, if I'm working on things with Reiki, you guys find out about it because I make posts about it. And that's not to brag. It's just to say, hey, I'm doing something. I'm making my dream into a reality. And I hope that it inspires you to do the same. So while you are making your dreams into realities, think about little things that you can do to take those small steps to get off the fence post and to step into the unknown with grace and with peace. Because the unknown is not necessarily this fearsome, gruesome beast of a thing that's just going to happen to you. It's always there. It's always been there. There's always something you don't know. That doesn't mean it's not worth experiencing. That doesn't mean it's not worth learning about. So keep that in mind, guys. I hope you have a beautiful Saturn's Day, and I hope that tomorrow you have a wonderful Sunday. I hope that you are safe, and I hope that you got something positive out of this, and that you'll tune in for Self-Care Saturday with my sweetie Mixture Whispers later tonight. Peace and blessings, guys.